Robert Rosier. Robert Rosier's story reads like something torn from a psychological thriller. Between 1981 and 1986, Rosier was responsible for at least 7 murders committed under the orders of a black supremacist cult known as the Nation of Yahweh. These killings weren't random, they were ritualistic executions designed to prove loyalty to a leader who demanded blood as proof of faith. Investigators would later say Rosier killed more people than games he played in the NFL, a grim statistic that cemented his infamy. Rosier was born in 1955 in Anchorage, Alaska, to an Air Force family. His childhood was nomadic, bouncing between bases until the family settled in California, where he discovered football. Tall, athletic, and imposing at 6'3", he became a high school star but struggled academically, graduating with a GPA barely above 1.3. He moved through Grays Harbor College and UC Berkeley, showing promise on the field, but never quite mastering discipline off it. Drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in 1979, he played only 6 games before being cut amid whispers of drug use and petty theft. A brief stint in the Canadian Football League followed, but his career crumbled as quickly as it began. By the early 1980s, disillusioned and broke, Rosier drifted toward the Nation of Yahweh, a movement that preached that black Americans were the true Israelites and whites were devils to be purged. Its leader, Yahweh ben Yahweh, born Hulan Mitchell Jr., demanded absolute obedience. Inside the secretive brotherhood, new members proved their devotion by murdering a white devil and returning with a body part, often an ear, as evidence. Rosier, renamed Nehariah Israel, embraced the doctrine completely. Between 1984 and 1986, he confessed to 7 killings carried out across Miami, Newark, and Missouri. Victims included random pedestrians like Attilio Chikala, an elderly homeless man stabbed to death before a cult visit, Glendale Fowler and Kurt Dorr, 2 men murdered after being followed home, and others killed for resisting the group's control over an apartment complex. His arrest came on Halloween night in 1986, after 2 cult-linked shootings in Opelika, Florida. Initially, Rosier denied everything, but when the FBI built a conspiracy case against Yahweh ben Yahweh, Rosier flipped, confessing to multiple murders in exchange for leniency. His testimony was the prosecution's key weapon in convicting Yahweh on federal racketeering charges. The plea earned Rosier a 22-year sentence. He served 10 and was released in 1996 under witness protection, but his freedom didn't last. Under a new identity, Robert Ramesses, he was arrested for check fraud in California in 1999. Because of his prior felonies, the 3 strikes law condemned him to 25 to life. As of 2025, he remains incarcerated at Mule Creek State Prison. Parole denied again in January. Rosier's story isn't just a case study in violence. It's a collision of vulnerability, ideology, and broken ambition. Once a promising athlete, he became a cult assassin, forever remembered as the NFL player who murdered in the name of faith, Tommy Kane. Tommy Kane's life looked like redemption in motion, a kid from Montreal's Little Burgundy who outran poverty, crime, and chaos to reach the NFL. But what began as a comeback story ended in one of Canada's most haunting domestic killings. On November 30th, 2003, Kane stabbed his estranged wife, Tamara Sheikh, to death during what was supposed to be a family intervention. She had gone to his mother's house, hoping to help him fight his drug addiction. Within minutes, she was dead, stabbed in the neck after Kane, in a rage, dragged her by the hair and smashed her head against the floor. Kane was born in the mid-1960s and raised in one of Montreal's roughest neighborhoods. Despite run-ins with police as a teen, he emerged as a football prodigy. At Syracuse University, he became one of the school's greatest wide receivers, setting touchdown and yards per catch records that still stand. The Seattle Seahawks drafted him in 1988, and over 5 seasons he caught 142 passes for 2,034 yards and 9 touchdowns. Modest stats, but enough to make him a Canadian hero. He gave generously to youth programs and even donated his entire CFL salary when he briefly joined the Toronto Argonauts in 1994. But when his career ended due to injuries, his identity collapsed with it. By the early 2000s, Kane's marriage was unraveling. Unemployed and addicted to cocaine and alcohol, he began stalking Sheikh after she moved out with their 4 children. Family members organized an intervention, believing love could save him. Instead, it triggered catastrophe. When Sheikh entered the house that morning, Kane snapped. Witnesses described him as possessed, alternating between sobbing and stabbing. Police arrested him moments later, his clothes soaked in blood. Charged with second-degree murder, Kane's legal team argued diminished capacity, citing severe depression and drug influence. In 2004, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter, a plea deal that spared him life imprisonment, but still drew an unusually harsh sentence of 18 years. The judge called it a senseless act by a manipulative man who destroyed a family. Prison records show Kane struggled at first, racking up disciplinary infractions before committing to therapy and faith-based rehabilitation. He was granted granted day parole in 2015 and statutory release the following year. In 2019, he briefly returned to custody for violating parole by using drugs, but was released again with a warning. As of 2025, he lives quietly in Quebec, completing his sentence under supervision. The murder of Tamara Sheikh remains one of Canada's most discussed cases of domestic violence involving a professional athlete. For Kane, the tragedy became a cautionary tale about the psychological fallout of fame, a player who gave everything to football and lost everything that truly mattered. Jovan Belcher, December 1st, 2012. Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Jovan Belcher wakes before dawn in his suburban home, still wearing the emotional hangover of a night out drinking. He argues with his girlfriend, Cassandra Perkins, over money, fidelity, and stress. Minutes later, 9 gunshots echo through the house. Perkins is dead. Belcher kisses her forehead, apologizes to his mother for what he's done, and drives to the Chiefs' training facility. There, in the parking lot, he thanks his coaches for everything and shoots himself in the head. Belcher's path to that morning was both inspiring and tragic. A native of West Babylon, New York, and a graduate of the University of Maine, he was known in college for activism against domestic violence. He even served as a peer educator for Male Athletes Against Violence. Undrafted in 2009, he clawed his way onto the Chiefs roster through sheer determination, becoming a starting linebacker and community volunteer. But behind the image of discipline was a young man struggling with emotional instability and repeated head injuries. The couple's relationship had been turbulent. Family friends noted cycles of reconciliation and conflict, fueled by exhaustion from caring for their 3-month-old daughter. On the night before the shooting, Perkins attended a concert while Belcher went out drinking. Police encountered him asleep in his Bentley outside another woman's apartment hours before the murder, but let him go. By morning, something snapped. The autopsy found Perkins had been shot 9 times, in the neck, chest, back, and leg. Belcher's blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit. Post-mortem studies later revealed Belcher suffered from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, the same degenerative brain condition found in Aaron Hernandez and Junior Seau. His mother filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Chiefs, alleging the team ignored his concussions and fostered a toxic environment. Experts said his brain showed severe tau buildup, consistent with repeated trauma. The NFL's decision to play a game the very next day drew outrage, seen by some as a sign of the league's detachment from human tragedy. The Chiefs won, but the victory felt hollow. Today, Belcher's case stands as a grim warning about untreated concussions, mental health neglect, and the thin line between discipline and despair. It forced the league to reevaluate its policies, yet many argue the lessons still go unlearned. Aaron Hernandez. Few names in NFL history evoke such simultaneous brilliance and horror as Aaron Hernandez. Once the youngest tight end in the league, a Super Bowl contender with the New England Patriots, and a multi-millionaire at 23, he was also a man living a double life of paranoia, drugs, and violence. On June 17, 2013, Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro football player and boyfriend of Hernandez's fiance's sister, was found shot 6 times in an industrial park less than a mile from Hernandez's home. The evidence trail led straight back to him. Security footage, DNA on shell casings, destroyed surveillance drives, and text messages confirming a midnight rendezvous. When police arrived at Hernandez's mansion days later, he greeted them shirtless and smirking, unaware that the world's media had already branded him the NFL's latest fallen star. Arrested on June 26, 2013, and charged with first-degree murder, he was released by the Patriots within hours, a rare instance of the team publicly severing ties before trial. Hernandez's fall began long before that night. Born in 1989 in Bristol, Connecticut, he endured an abusive childhood under a violent father, whose death when Aaron was 16 triggered years of rebellion. At the University of Florida, he dominated as a tight end under Urban Meyer, earning the 2009 John Mackey Award. Yet, he repeatedly failed drug tests, was questioned in shootings, and punched a restaurant manager, all before entering the NFL. The Patriots drafted him in the 4th round despite red flags, pairing him with Rob Gronkowski to create one of the league's most dangerous duos. By 2012, he'd signed a $40 million contract extension and was secretly living a life steeped in guns, gang ties, and paranoia. Prosecutors said Hernandez lured Lloyd out for a ride with 2 associates, Ernest Wallace and Carlos Ortiz, before executing him over fears Lloyd knew too much about a previous double homicide. Hernandez's fiancée, Shayanna Jenkins, later testified about disposing of evidence at his request. In 2015, he was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. While awaiting appeal, Hernandez faced another trial for the 2012 drive-by murders of Daniel Deabro and Safiro Furtado, allegedly sparked by a spilled drink. He was acquitted in 2017 but found guilty of weapons possession 5 days later. he was dead, found hanging in his cell with John 3:16 scrawled on his forehead. Post-mortem examination revealed stage 3, CTE, the worst ever seen in a player his age. Hernandez's case reshaped how the public viewed athletes, fame, and mental health. It exposed the hidden fractures behind the glossy image of NFL superstardom and raised uncomfortable questions about trauma, sexuality, and identity suppression. Media like Netflix's Killer Inside and FX's American Sports Story turned his downfall into cultural myth, but beneath it all lies the stark truth that unchecked pain left to fester can destroy everything it touches. Phillip Adams, April 7, 2021. A quiet afternoon in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Neighbors hear gunfire from the home of Dr. Robert Leslie, a beloved local physician. When police arrive, they find 6 victims: the doctor, his wife, their 2 grandchildren, and 2 HVAC technicians. The killer, former NFL cornerback Phillip Adams, is later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound at his parents' home nearby. Adams's trajectory followed a familiar NFL tragedy curve. Local hero, journeyman player, then silent decline. Born in Rock Hill in 1988, he played at South Carolina State before being drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in 2010. Over 7 seasons and 6 teams, including the Patriots, Raiders, Jets, and Falcons. He appeared in 78 games, carving out a modest but respectable career. Yet behind the stats were devastating injuries, multiple concussions, and a broken ankle that ended his 2010. By the time he retired in 2016, he was a shell of himself, suffering memory loss, mood swings, and paranoia. Friends said he withdrew from everyone. His family begged the NFL for disability support, citing mental instability. He scribbled paranoid notes, muttered about being watched, and reportedly slept with loaded guns. Still, no one imagined he was capable of mass murder. On that April day, Adams drove an ATV to the Leslie residence carrying 2 handguns, a .45 and a 9mm, and opened fire, killing the family and the technicians before fleeing. Investigators found no suicide note, no manifesto, no clear motive. Sheriff Kevin Tolson said bluntly, only one person knew the why, and he's gone. An autopsy later revealed advanced stage 2 CTE, with brain damage unusually severe for a man in his early 30s. Experts from Boston University compared it to that of Aaron Hernandez, noting damage to areas controlling impulse and judgment. Adams's father publicly blamed football, declaring, "I can say he wasn't a violent person. Football messed him up." Lawsuits soon followed, with victims' families suing his estate and the NFL for negligence in handling head injuries. In the years since, Rock Hill has rebuilt slowly. Memorials to the Leslie family stand at churches and youth clinics, while discussions about mental health in football continue nationwide. Adams' case underscores how invisible injuries, the ones buried deep within the brain, can lead to horrors no one sees coming. It's not a story of evil alone, but of neglect, silence, and the unbearable cost of untreated trauma. Cierre Wood. In April 2019, police in Las Vegas arrived at an apartment complex after a distress call involving a 5-year-old girl. What they found shocked even seasoned detectives. Lariah Davis, lifeless on the floor, bruised and emaciated, the victim of repeated abuse. Standing over her body was former NFL running back Cierre Wood, a one-time star at Notre Dame who had bounced between teams like the Texans and Bills before drifting out of football. Investigators soon learned that Wood had forced the child, his girlfriend's daughter, to perform grueling workouts as punishment for being, in his words, chunky. Those workouts included sit-ups, wall squats, and push-ups until she collapsed. Wood's story began with promise. Born in 1991 in Bloomington, California, he was a prodigy at Santa Clara High, setting rushing records that drew national attention. At Notre Dame, his explosive speed made him one of the school's top running backs, rushing for over 2,600 yards and 16 touchdowns between 2010 and 2012. But off the field, there were red flags, suspensions for violating team rules, and academic disputes. After going undrafted in 2013, he signed with the Houston Texans, briefly flashing potential before getting cut for disciplinary issues. Over the next few years, he bounced between teams, New England, Buffalo, and Las Vegas, but never stuck. By 2015, his NFL dream was over. In Las Vegas, Wood lived with his girlfriend, Amy Taylor, and her daughter, Lariah. Friends described him as controlling, quick to anger, and obsessed with discipline. On April 9, 2019, paramedics found the child unresponsive after what Wood called a punishment workout. The autopsy revealed bruises on nearly every inch of her body, internal bleeding, and a lacerated liver. Prosecutors argued she'd endured ongoing torture, with Wood admitting to forcing the child into exercises while laughing that it was like a boot camp. Taylor also participated in the abuse. At trial, Wood's defense portrayed him as a strict disciplinarian with no intent to kill, citing his military-style upbringing and claims of CTE symptoms. The jury disagreed. In 2024, he was convicted of second-degree murder and child abuse, sentenced to 10 years to life in Nevada State Prison. Taylor received a similar term. The case reignited debates over how fame can distort accountability, how someone once celebrated for strength could weaponize it against the defenseless. For the NFL, it was another stain in a decade defined by domestic tragedies and criminal spirals, leaving fans wondering how many warning signs go ignored before the headlines turn fatal. Ware Jr. In December 2021, skeletal remains were discovered in a ditch outside Houston, Texas. DNA confirmed the worst. They belonged to Taylor Pomaski, the missing girlfriend of former NFL tight end Ware Jr. She had vanished 7 months earlier after a violent argument at a house party. Ware, already out on bond for unrelated gun and drug charges, was arrested soon after. Investigators alleged he strangled her, burned her body, and disposed of the remains in a remote field. Ware's path to that grisly discovery was lined with squandered potential. Born in 1980 in San Diego, he excelled as a multi-sport athlete before joining the University of Washington. His performance earned him a shot in the NFL, first with the Washington Redskins in 2003, then the San Francisco 49ers, but he played just 11 games before off-field trouble consumed his career. Over the years, Ware amassed a rap sheet of arrests for assault, drug possession, and weapons charges, serving multiple short jail stints. In April 2021, during a house party at his residence, neighbors heard screaming and saw Pomaski arguing with Ware in the yard. She disappeared that night. Ware claimed she left on her own, a statement contradicted by blood evidence and witnesses who described him dragging her inside. Detectives later uncovered that he'd burned clothing and cleaned his house with bleach the following morning. After months of investigation, Ware was indicted for murder and tampering with evidence in 2022. The autopsy revealed signs of strangulation and dismemberment. In May 2025, he pleaded guilty, receiving a 30-year sentence. The plea avoided a potential life term, but offered little solace to Pomaski's family, who had pleaded for closure for nearly 4 years. Ware's case reignited scrutiny on domestic abuse in professional sports. Critics noted that despite repeated violent behavior, he continued receiving second chances, even after his 2018 weapons arrest. His fall from NFL hopeful to convicted murderer underscored a recurring cycle: talent without accountability, ego without empathy. Once cheered in stadiums, he now serves his sentence in a Texas state prison, a haunting symbol of wasted opportunity and lethal anger. O.J. Simpson, June 12, 1994, Los Angeles. 2 bodies, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, found outside Nicole's Brentwood home. Multiple stab wounds, blood trails leading through the walkway, and a single black glove left behind. Within days, former NFL superstar O.J. Simpson became the prime suspect in what the world would call the trial of the century. The story that followed wasn't just about murder. It was about celebrity, race, and America's obsession with guilt and innocence. Before that night, Simpson was an icon, a Heisman Trophy winner, Hall of Fame running back, and beloved actor. He embodied success, but his marriage to Nicole was plagued by abuse. Police reports dating back years described beatings, jealousy, and control. On June 13th, detectives found Simpson with fresh cuts on his hands and blood traces in his car. He promised to surrender peacefully, chasing television history, riding in a white Ford Bronco as 95 million people tuned in live. The evidence seemed overwhelming, matching glove DNA, blood at the crime scene, shoe prints, and a timeline aligning perfectly. Yet, Simpson's legal dream team, led by Johnny Cochran, dismantled the prosecution's narrative. When Simpson struggled to fit the infamous glove during trial, Cochran delivered the legendary line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." On October 3rd, 1995, the jury found him not guilty. Outside the courthouse, cheers erupted in some neighborhoods and outrage in others, the verdict reflecting America's racial divide more than judicial consensus. Civil court was less forgiving. In 1997, a separate trial found Simpson liable for the deaths, ordering him to pay $33.5 million in damages to the victims' families, a debt largely unpaid. paid. In 2007, he returned to headlines after a botched armed robbery in Las Vegas, resulting in a 9-year prison sentence. Simpson died in April 2024, age 76, from prostate cancer. Even in death, opinions remain split. Was he a victim of racist policing or a murderer who exploited fame? Either way, O.J. Simpson's case redefined how the world viewed justice, celebrity, and the thin armor that protects athletes from accountability. Ray Lewis, January 31st, 2000, Atlanta, Georgia, the night of Super Bowl XXIV celebrations. Two men, Jacinth Baker and Richard Lawler, are stabbed to death outside a nightclub. Witnesses report seeing Baltimore Ravens linebacker Ray Lewis in a limousine speeding away. Days later, Lewis is charged with double murder. What followed became one of the most scrutinized cases in NFL history, a mix of fame, violence, and redemption. Lewis, born in Bartow, Florida, was a generational talent. Drafted by the Ravens in 1996, he built his reputation on fearlessness, leading one of the NFL's most dominant defenses. But off the field, he lived lavishly. Entourages, champagne, and the kind of post-game parties that blurred luxury with chaos. On that fateful night, an altercation broke out between Lewis's group and another party outside the Cobalt Lounge. Moments later, two men lay dying. Blood was found inside Lewis's limo, and witnesses identified his companions Reginald Oakley and Joseph Sweeting as attackers. Lewis denied direct involvement, but admitted to being present. Initially facing murder charges, he made a deal. He testified against his friends in exchange for reduced charges of obstruction of justice. He admitted to giving misleading statements to police and discarding his blood-stained white suit, a crucial piece of evidence never recovered. His cooperation led to the acquittal of Oakley and Sweeting, fueling speculation that justice had been bought with silence. Despite public skepticism, Lewis reinvented himself. He returned to football that same year, led the Ravens to a Super Bowl victory, and was named MVP. Over time, he recast his image as a man of faith, becoming an outspoken Christian and motivational speaker. Yet, critics argue his redemption arc overshadowed unanswered questions: why the suit vanished and how two men could die without accountability. In retirement, Lewis became an analyst and philanthropist, but the 2000 murders still shadow his legacy. His case revealed how easily fame can shift the narrative, from suspect to symbol. Whether hero or hypocrite, Lewis walked away freer than most men in his position ever could. His story, a study in image management and survival in the court of public opinion. Sean Taylor, November 26, 2007, Miami, Washington Redskins safety. Sean Taylor lies bleeding on the floor of his bedroom, a gunshot wound to the femoral artery. His girlfriend calls 911 as their infant daughter cries nearby. Within a day, Taylor, one of the NFL's brightest young stars, is dead. The burglars responsible were teenagers, unaware that the house they targeted was occupied. Taylor's death shook the NFL to its core. At just 24, he was already a Pro Bowl defender and fan favorite, known for his ferocious hits and silent leadership. Born and raised in Miami's gritty neighborhoods, he played for the University of Miami before becoming the 5th overall pick in the 2004 draft. His life mirrored a rags-to-riches story, a quiet, stoic athlete trying to distance himself from his past. In the early hours of November 26, 2007, 5 young men broke into his Palmetto Bay home, expecting it to be empty while he recovered from a knee injury. Instead, Taylor had returned early from a Redskins game. When he confronted them with a machete, one of the intruders, Ware Jr., fired a single shot through the door, striking Taylor in the leg. The bullet severed his femoral artery. Despite emergency surgery, he died the next morning. The suspects, Rivera, Jason Mitchell, Charles Wardlow, Venja Hunter, and Timothy Brown, were all arrested within days. Rivera confessed to pulling the trigger and was later sentenced to 57 years in prison. The others received terms ranging from 18 years to life. Taylor's funeral drew thousands, including teammates, fans, and NFL legends. His number 21 became a symbol of perseverance, later memorialized by the Commanders franchise. More than a tragedy, his death marked a turning point in player security awareness. Teams began increasing home protection measures, understanding that celebrity often paints a target on one's back. Even today, Sean Taylor represents what could have been, a superstar robbed of his prime. His case closed quickly, yet the loss lingers in the sport's collective memory. Taylor wasn't a perpetrator or a villain. He was a reminder that in the world of professional football, danger sometimes finds you even when you've done everything right. If you enjoyed watching this video, then go ahead and click on any of the cards on your screen for more.